They even threw them in jail.
Peter Navarro,
Steve Bannon,
now in prison.
But they couldn't stop them.
It's not a prison bill that will ever shut me up.
This is America's Voice Live.
And welcome to America's Voice Live. I'm Steve Gruber.
The pulse of the people.
We need somebody that's going to hear the people's voice.
The truth the mainstream won't touch.
This guy is, by definition, a globalist.
And the stories that matter.
Rav's own Ben Berquam.
Right up over this hill, we got armed cartel. I see him.
Live.
Breaking news right now here on Real America's Voice.
Unfiltered.
These people are domestic terrorists.
And unapologetic.
We're here to take a stand for God and country. Does feel good, doesn't it?
America's Voice Live starts now.
Welcome to America's Voice Live. I'm Emily Finn, filling in today for Steve Gruber. Today is Wednesday, June 11th, and let's get into today's top stories. President Trump and Elon Musk seem to have reconciled their relationship after last week's war of words on X pertaining to the Big Beautiful Bill, which has been the center of controversy for weeks. I'll bring on political consultant Roger Stone to discuss that today. Also, while focus has been on that big, beautiful bill, there is another deadline coming up, the Recisions package that Congress needs to pass by July 18th to lock in the DOGE cuts. We'll be discussing that as well later. Then some teachers and professors are sounding the alarm when it comes to artificial intelligence in American classrooms, calling it the real disruptor of higher education. All the details and updates are coming your way today, so stay tuned. Meanwhile, the big, beautiful bill is on everyone's mind as the anti-ICE riots in LA and across the country are ongoing. I had the privilege to talk to Representative Miller-Meeks earlier today, and I'd like to show you that interview now. Please take a look. President Trump's big, beautiful bill has been with the Senate for some time now, after being passed by the House of Representatives in May of this year. Many Republican leaders, including President Trump himself, have expressed the need for this bill to ensure tax cuts, border security, and to cut the national debt. However, there are other Republican leaders who are concerned with spending within the bill. House Speaker Mike Johnson has stated that July 4th is still the target deadline for the passing of the bill in full, but that remains to be seen as of now. Here with me to discuss this is United States Representative Miller-Meeks of Iowa. Congresswoman, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Thank you, Emily. Delighted to be with you and fully support getting one big, beautiful bill act across the finish line.
Okay, all right. So you are in full support. Are you optimistic that it's going to pass before July 4th?
I am optimistic that we'll pass July 4th, and what a better way to celebrate liberty, freedom, and independence in the United States than by having one big, beautiful bill act fully passed into law. This, the Democrats, when they voted against this bill, they voted for the largest tax increase in our history. And this is taxes and a tax increase on working families, single mothers, small businesses, farmers. Even today, I was having lunch with a small business owner that was here with the National Federation of Independent Businesses. The passage of the Tax Cut and Jobs Act is so important to their ability to stay in business and to be able to grow their business and have jobs in rural Iowa. So this is an absolutely critical bill that really benefits single mothers, working families, hardworking Iowans and Americans.
Yeah, as you mentioned, from tax cuts, border security, cutting the national debt, this bill seems to be pretty important for the GOP agenda. Do you think that the Senate will make any major changes to this bill? We know that some GOP senators are a little bit hesitant because of all of this spending. Do you think that the Senate is going to make changes and send it back to the House?
Well, first of all, I think that there will be some changes, but it will be done in coordination with the House and with the White House, as was done when the House was developing the bill to send over to the Senate. So, yes, I expect some changes, but I don't think there'll be drastic changes. And the other thing I'd like to comment on is the Democrats' rhetoric on increasing the national debt or the deficit. Since when have the Democrats cared about how much money is being spent? We're in the predicament we're in precisely because they were spending 1.7 to 1.9 trillion per year the past 4 years under President Biden. And we have a crisis now at the border that we have to fix precisely because the Democrats had open border policy. We know that the CBO does not score well when it comes to tax policy. And so they put in economic growth at 1.8%. We know from the first time Tax Cut and Jobs Act was authorized that economic growth will be more along the realm of 3 to 4%. So I think that we're going to reduce the deficit and the debt even more than what is anticipated to happen. I do not think it will increase the deficit. But again, whether it's border security, whether it is energy policy, supporting our national security and defense, whether it's what we're doing to help grow the economy, help small businesses, help farmers, no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, benefits to those seniors on Social Security, all of that helps the average working American.
All right, Congresswoman, I would like to shift gears here for a moment to the anti-ICE riots that we're seeing, not only in Los Angeles, but other cities as well. Do you think that this is a prime example of why the big, beautiful bill needs to be passed in order to ramp up border security even further?
Absolutely, Emily, you're spot on. Within the big, beautiful bill is funding for continuing the fence, for the technology that goes, for agents to be able. How can you defend protesting, defending, or deporting criminal illegal aliens? One of those was an individual who went to a high school with a rifle, killed 2 students and injured others. That's the people they're defending. And we have seen this playbook before. This happened in 2020 with riots, with the BLM riots, where they were far from peaceful. They destroyed courthouses. They set cars on fire. These are not, the Democrats like to use the word AstroTurf. These are AstroTurf protesters. They have supplies. They have bricks. They are being funded to do this. But how do you defend these policies? And I think Democrats are going to rue the day when they supported these types of protests, which are violent riots. They are far from peaceful.
Really, really well said. And especially in Los Angeles specifically, there's just been such a failure of leadership. You brought up the BLM riots in 2020. And now again, President Trump needed to act. He needed to do something, send in the National Guard, because there was no confidence that Gavin Newsom, Karen Bass were going to do anything to get this under control. Now we're seeing these protests pop up in other major cities throughout the U.S. I understand that there were protests in your district in Iowa. We spoke, before we had our interview here. I have a special place in my heart for Iowa, so I hate to see that violence there. What can you tell us?
Yes, there are protests that are occurring now in my district. And as I said, we have seen this before. We have seen this playbook before. The Democrats give lip service to supporting law enforcement. But when the rubber meets the road, they don't support law enforcement. They don't support the rule of law, which constitutionally is one of the things that sets the United States apart from other countries. We support the rule of law. We support the Constitution, and we support law enforcement, which includes ICE. These individuals are doing their job, to be videotaping, to be following officers when they go to a hotel, when they go to their homes, releasing their personal information. This is unconscionable what they are doing. This is anarchy. It is not a peaceful protest. It's not protesting a policy. This is a lack of regard and respect for law enforcement and the rule of law in this country. And I think this is going to backfire on the Democrats. And well, it should. People want to be safe within their communities. And there is a party that is not going to keep them safe, and that's the Democrat Party.
And they've made that extraordinarily clear with their response to these riots. Congresswoman, you brought this up, the possibility that the agitators are being paid to rile up the American left, to burn, destroy American cities. I mean, they're certainly well organized. Have you been hearing anything about if they're being paid to do this?
Well, we know that we had some protesters in our district for other things that were not from the district, not from counties within my district. Some were from other counties nearby, but some of them were from out of state. We also know that this is very well organized, that there are individuals that are not from the city in which they're protesting. And also, when you're looking at the stacks of bricks, when you're looking at the supplies that they have, this seems to be far from grassroots organized, popping up protest just all of a sudden. It reminds us of the riots, of the thefts. If you remember in Los Angeles when they had, you can shoplift up to $999 without going to jail, and you had organized theft. And we are seeing that in Los Angeles now, where there is organized thefts, breaking through the roll-up gates, breaking windows, stealing things. So there are certainly opportunists, but it seems to be very well coordinated and very well supplied, and supplied in a way that is surprising if this is a grassroots organization, just, all of a sudden, feeling the need to get out and protest. There are people who have a lot of time on their hands.
Certainly, that is the only way that you can really describe it. You know, you mentioned some of these items that they use as weapons, the bricks. They are planted at the sites of the protests beforehand. Certainly, a lot of questions to be answered about the organization behind these riots. Congresswoman Miller-Meeks, I really appreciated your insight today. Thank you so much for joining the show. God bless you. All right, coming up after the break, President Trump and Elon Musk seem to have reconciled their relationship after last week's war of words on X pertaining to the big, beautiful bill, among other things. I'll be discussing that and more coming up next. America's Voice Live. The LA riots are the topic of discussion this week. One could say that these riots have been used as a distraction by the left to turn everyone's attention away from President Trump's one big, beautiful bill. The big, beautiful bill has been the center of controversy for many Americans. Some GOP leaders have come out against the bill because of spending concerns. Elon Musk himself also came out against the bill last week in his war of words with President Trump on X that sent the internet into a frenzy. Musk posted on X that the big, beautiful bill would cause a recession in the latter half of 2025, and that he was the reason Donald Trump won the presidential election. Musk has since taken the post down and stated that he regrets his posts about President Trump. Here with me to discuss this is political consultant and host of the Stone Zone, Roger Stone. Thank you so much for being with me today.
Great to be back with you again.
All right, Roger. So as a political consultant, would you say that President Trump's limited interaction with Elon was a smart play? Should he have been more direct? Well, what are your thoughts on all of this?
Look, I think Elon Musk, after he bought Twitter, converted it to a free speech site, but particularly after he revealed the government's involvement with Twitter executives in the mass censorship of Trump supporters, conservatives, libertarians, anyone who didn't believe with the government's narrative, he put a target on his back. He had 9 federal investigations into his companies by the Biden administration. I think he figured out that if Kamala Harris won, they would probably cancel all of his federal contracts, destroy his businesses, and probably put him in jail. So he elected to support President Trump, and I think his help was meaningful. I think he was helpful, but only Donald Trump elected Donald Trump. I like Elon Musk. I'm grateful that he gave me my voice back, but I disagree with him about the big, beautiful bill. I agree with him in the sense that we need to do far more to cut federal spending, particularly waste, fraud, and corrupt spending. But the place to do that is not in a budget reconciliation bill. It's in a rescission bill, the first of which is going to the Congress. Will cut $9 million off the bat and close down, for example, USAID, which has become a slush fund for the left. But just the tax reduction, the largest single tax cut in American history, enacted in President Trump's first term, now renewed in the big, beautiful bill starting in January, that alone is crucial for the survival and growth of the economy. Add to that the funding for the Golden Dome, which is really a protection for the country from incoming intercontinental ballistic missiles. Those 2 things alone are important for the Congress to pass. Not everything in the big, beautiful bill is perfect. I don't like some of the AI-related language, but those things can be addressed in the Senate. They can also be addressed in conference. But I think the deficiencies in the bill can be fixed. But the important thing is passing the huge tax cuts on the American people.
Yeah, I completely agree with you there, Roger. I think everyone's on board, on the same page with these tax cuts, but there is some stuff. I mean, this is why it's been taking so much time in the Senate. There's some things that these senators are already in the process of talking about. Now, I think that with Elon Musk and everything that he did with Doge, so many people were ready to take his comments at face value about the big, beautiful bill. Do you think that his status or the consistent and negative coverage around President Trump kind of influenced how people viewed this spat between the 2 men?
Look, I think that they're going to get back together, and I think they really are on the same page. I think Elon Musk deserves a lot of credit for identifying not millions, not billions, but trillions of dollars of waste, fraud, and corruption in federal spending. And it does need to be acted on, but it's not all going to happen in the first. This is H.R. 1, the first piece of legislation that the administration puts its muscle behind. So he's not wrong about the need to cut wasteful spending and corrupt expenditures, but it's not all going to happen at once. That said, I still think that he realizes there's no constituency within the Democrat Party for him. I hope he's retracted some of his crazier claims that Trump is in the Epstein files. I wrote a book, The Clintons' War on Women, in 2015. The longest chapter in the book is about Jeffrey Epstein, in which I exposed all of his foibles, and I explained Donald Trump's limited relationship with him. Donald Trump broke with Epstein prior to Epstein being exposed and charged in Florida with sex crimes. The Clintons continued to take money from him and to socialize with him after his conviction in Florida and before he was reindicted on federal charges. Trump had banned Epstein from his life. So there is nothing to this. It is a recycling of a charge built by Hillary Clinton to distract from the Clintons' relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, because they took millions of dollars for him for the Clinton Foundation and the Clinton Global Initiative, and they both visited his island, which Donald Trump never did. This was a vicious smear started by the Clintons. I see that Elon has now taken that post down. I'm glad that he did.
Yeah, glad that he did as well. And Roger, it makes me laugh that you said that you think that they're going to get back together, because that's been the joke. Everyone's saying that this was like a breakup. I mean, Elon was smearing him left and right, taking them down, now apologizing. I think he's certainly embarrassed. I have to ask you, what do you think sparked Elon's meltdown?
I think it was a combination of things. I don't think it was solely the fact that there were insufficient spending cuts in the big, beautiful bill.
Right.
There was also no tax break for those buying an electric vehicle, while there is a tax write-off or a tax credit, I guess it is, for those who buy an American-made gas-fueled car. I also think he was unhappy that one of his colleagues, Jared Isaacman, was not appointed to be the head of NASA, which would have a great impact on Musk's rocket business. I think those are all contributing factors. But look, today I saw him say that even he admitted that a number of his posts about Trump were intemperate, and he apologized for them. So I like Elon Musk. I value the fact that he gave me my voice back on X. I'm Roger J. Stone Jr., Roger J. Stone Jr. on X. I invite people to follow me there. You know why? Because I'm still banned for life on Facebook. I'm still banned for life on Instagram. I'm still banned for life on YouTube. So I'm grateful to Elon Musk, and I'm glad to see that he's apologized for the president and he's getting back in the fold.
Absolutely. You know, we can't take it away from him. What he did with X totally revolutionized free speech in the realm of social media platforms, Roger. And, you know, I think that the negative coverage of President Trump, that was the worst thing to see with this. The mainstream media just so happy and jumping on board with Elon Musk the moment that he decided to, kind of turn on him. That was awful to see. Do you think that the mainstream media is going to change the way that they've been covering President Trump?
No, unfortunately not, because they're really not journalists. There's no such thing as journalism in America. These media outlets like CNN and MSNBC, these are propaganda fronts for extreme leftists. I don't get my news from CNN for the same reason I don't drink out of the toilet. Very little of what they report is either true or accurate. The good news is the American people see through that. So that's why they go to places like Real America's Voice and other locations where they can get the truth. Thank God for the alternative media and the great job that you folks are doing.
Yeah, and thank God. Our viewers are definitely getting their news from the right place. Roger Stone, appreciate you coming on the show. Always a pleasure to speak with you.
Great to be here. Thank you.
Coming up after the break, while focus has been on the big, beautiful bill, there's another deadline coming up, the Recisions package that Congress needs to pass by July 18th to lock in the DOGE cuts. I'll be discussing that next, right here on America's Voice Live. staying with us on America's Voice Live. I'm Emily Finn, filling in today for Steve Gruber. While things are heating up with the big, beautiful bill, another major deadline is coming fast. Congress must pass the Recisions package to lock in the DOGE cuts. And if Congress doesn't clear the Recisions package, the White House is required to spend the money. Eliminating these provisions would save taxpayers approximately $9.4 billion and begin the process of locking in savings created by DOGE. These rescissions and robust oversight should go hand in hand so that they can streamline government operations and ensure that federal funds are used effectively. Here with me now to discuss the rescissions package is the Executive Vice President at the National Taxpayers Union, Brandon Arnold. Brandon, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Emily.
Why do you think Congress is so unwilling to have these rescissions be permanent?
Yeah, Congress doesn't like to cut spending. They love to spend money, but cutting spending has always been a difficult task for Congress here. And this is pretty low-hanging fruit that we're talking about. First of all, the size of the package. As you note, it's only about $9.4 billion. A lot of money to you or me, but in the grand scheme of things, this is about 0.14% of the federal budget. So a teeny tiny cut in the grand scheme of things for the federal government. And it's low-hanging fruit in that it's really wasteful spending. We shouldn't be subsidizing Sesame Street in Iraq or funding cultural heritage projects in the Sudan. This just doesn't make sense under any ideological viewpoint here, whether you're on the left, the right, the center, whatever. We shouldn't be doing this stuff. So it ought to be an easy vote. But of course, when you're talking about cutting spending, nothing is easy in Washington.
Yeah, and we're seeing that with the one big, beautiful bill that's obviously having a hard time getting passed in the Senate right now as well. I believe that this $9.4 billion package is just simply part one, that there would be additional rescissions packages that would come in the future. But as part of this first one, the USAID cuts are included. Can you walk us through how this package is going to benefit the American taxpayers? What is actually included that is going to be beneficial?
Yeah, I mean, USAID, they have a long history of spending all sorts of money on DEI, woke spending across the globe. This is not in the American interest. We're promoting all sorts of LGBTQ projects across the globe. We're funding voting ID in Haiti. I mentioned Iraqi Sesame Street. This is just ridiculous spending. If they want to do that stuff, they can do it with their own money. They should not be using American dollars here. So this unwinds billions of dollars that are being wasted across the globe. Also reins in the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, which is a fine institution, but not one that should be supported with public dollars, because it certainly has a leftward lean in its ideology. So this is, again, no-brainer type votes here. And it's ridiculous that they're putting up any kind of fight on the left or the right on Capitol Hill. This should be a slam dunk, easy vote, and let's, as you say, move along to bigger, more substantive types of spending to get the federal budget under control.
Yeah, you would think it would be a slam dunk, but politicians usually try to swat the ball out of the way. You know, DOGE has addressed many instances of wasteful spending. I mean, we just addressed a couple of them right there. If the rescissions package doesn't pass, do you see the spending on useless projects going back to where they were?
Yeah, that's going to be a really interesting question, because I think this administration obviously wants to get rid of those ridiculous spending items. The ability to do so, there's certainly some constitutional issues that are going to enter the conversation. Hopefully we won't get to that point. Hopefully Congress and the president can work together to enact laws that roll back unnecessary spending. If Congress can't do that, first of all, it's just embarrassing if Congress can't pass a $9.4 billion spending package when we're going to run a $2 trillion annual deficit this year. But if they can't, then the administration is certainly going to take steps in order to scale back some of this spending. And there will be a lot of lawsuits, and it's not clear how those will play out. It's not clear if we'll actually achieve those savings. This is the surest, safest, and most constitutionally sound way to reduce spending. And it should be, like I said, a no-brainer.
Well, walk us through a little bit further about what happens if the rescissions package is not passed. You brought up lawsuits. What does that look like?
Yeah, if the administration tries to reduce spending on its own by using something called impoundment, there will certainly be lawsuits against them. It's unclear as to actually who has the power to cut spending that has already been allocated through the statutory process. So Congress, the president, sign laws, agree to spend money in certain ways. If the president decides not to actually expend those funds, then it's unclear exactly how that would be resolved. That's why I'd rather keep this question out of the courts. We don't know how the courts will resolve issues like that. What we do know is that if Congress sends its rescissions package to the Congress, as it has already done, if the House and Senate both pass it, then that's $9.4 billion off the books. Let's move on. Let's have a $100 billion package next time and keep cutting away wasteful spending and getting this budget under control.
Absolutely. Well, Brandon Arnold, budget cuts, spending gets a little complicated sometimes, so I really appreciate you sharing your insight with us. Thanks for coming on the show.
My pleasure. Thank you.
All right, so think about it. Every dollar you spend is either supporting your values or working against them. In today's economy, where you spend your money matters. That's how we take our country back. Patriot Mobile is leading the way as America's only Christian conservative wireless provider. Switch today without sacrificing quality or service. You'll get exceptional nationwide coverage because unlike most budget wireless providers, Patriot Mobile has access to all 3 major U.S. networks. You can even add 2 numbers on 2 networks on one phone, something the big guys can't even do. Stay connected with flexible, unlimited data plans to fit your lifestyle. These plans offer high-speed data, mobile hotspots, international roaming, device protection, and even internet backup. And here's the best part. When you switch to Patriot Mobile, you're supporting faith, family, and freedom. If you believe in our First and Second Amendment rights, the sanctity of life, and supporting our veterans, this is where you belong. Switching is simple. Keep your number, keep your phone, or upgrade. Patriot Mobile's 100% U.S.-based team will get you activated in minutes. Right now, go to patriotmobile.com/RAV or call 972-PATRIOT to get a free month of service with the promo code RAV. Make the switch, defend freedom with every call and text. That's patriotmobile.com/RAV or call 972-PATRIOT. Coming up after the break, some teachers and professors are sounding the alarm when it comes to artificial intelligence in American classrooms, calling it the real disruptor of higher education. I'll elaborate on that next. Stay with us. Welcome back to the show. Teachers are not okay. Teachers are going through a crisis when it comes to generative AI in their classrooms, especially when it comes to trying to decipher hybrid essays, half written by students, half written by artificial intelligence. The confusion does not stop there when it comes to inconsistent rules regarding AI policies. Some teachers and professors are allowing AI to generate ideas, but not the actual physical work, while others are banning it altogether. It's gotten to the point where even students in doctoral programs are getting caught using AI in irresponsible ways that lead to misleading and inaccurate projects. Not only that, but these students aren't truly learning if they're using AI to generate projects. I mean, isn't that the whole point of school and class, to learn? Here to discuss with me is Campus Reform Higher Education Fellow and Professor of Political Science at Suffolk Community College in New York, Nicholas Giordano. Thank you for joining us, Nicholas.
Happy to be here, Emily.
So what would you suggest schools do to address especially doctoral students that are caught using AI? What should the consequences look like?
The consequences should be severe because you have to have a zero tolerance policy when it comes to submitting work that's not yours. I mean, if a student got caught cheating, plagiarizing 10 years ago, they would fail the course and in some cases be expelled from the college. So I think with AI, there needs to be a certain set of standards put in place. But as you alluded to, there is no uniformity of standards that exists in higher education. Every single college, every single department has their own positions on what they're doing with AI. And it's really challenging. I caught 24 students just about last semester that were using AI to either write their research paper or answer discussion posts. Now, as of right now, it's still easy to tell when a student is using AI because of AI is very pattern-based. It has limited language abilities where humans use wide variations. And you could tell it's AI when they use the M dashes or when they're referencing obscure policies and programs that nobody would really know. But as the technology improves, it is getting more and more difficult for professors to determine what's AI and what's not. And there are cases where even professors, they may accuse a student of using AI when the student wrote the paper themselves. So there has to be a certain set of standards in place that we go to in order to enforce policies and make sure students aren't using AI not to assist with education, but to actually take over education.
Well, absolutely. And I'm happy you brought that up because it also protects the students from being accused of cheating or submitting work that isn't theirs. What kind of solutions, since you brought this up, do you think would actually even work in practice? I mean, you can't just have cameras or have someone watching you the entire time you're doing your homework. What would even work?
Well, I think when it comes to writing assignments, we need to get back to basics. We need at college to start using the blue books again, the old school blue books, where you take pen to paper and actually have to use your brains. You actually have to think and answer discussion questions or write an essay in the classroom with the professor standing there, where the professor could see whether or not students are trying to access AI through their phones or whatever it is. And I think that's one measure that we could use in order to try and rein this problem in, have more discussions in the classroom, do more work inside the classroom. But when it comes to college, it is a little difficult because we only have about 15 weeks with a student and we meet twice per week. So if you're doing in-person writing assignments, it's taking away from the lecture. It's taking away from the material that has to be taught. So there has to be a balance. But we need to filter this down all the way through middle school, okay? Even middle schoolers are starting to move towards AI. It's very dangerous. And I think that there should be courses in middle school and high school of how to use the technology responsibly. I mean, I teach political science. For students to go through pieces of legislation, it's very difficult. It's written in legalese. You have thousands of pages. So it's easy to put it into AI and say, break this down. What are the policy implications? And to assist in learning. But what students are doing today is they're outsourcing their learning to the AI models. And that's not benefiting anyone because the students of today are the leaders of tomorrow. Well, if they can't think critically, if they can't analyze complex information, if they can't problem solve, and they can't socialize with their coworkers, well, this portrays a very bad and difficult future for an entire generation.
It really does. I think you bring up a lot of great points. Start this in middle school and put pen to paper. There's a lot of science that backs that up, that your brain is able to remember things better, and actually the things that you learn resonate with you a whole lot more. So I think those are really great solutions. But this isn't, the pressure on teachers to address this themselves. I mean, I really think it has to come from the higher education institutions, or like you said, the middle schools, the high schools. I think it has to be more widespread than just, by classroom.
And well, that's the problem. There is no uniformity. And listen, this was 2 years in the making. We all saw AI coming down the pike. Now, at first, we thought it wasn't going to have that big of an impact because the AI models were clunky. But given how rapidly they've improved these systems, that's where we need to come up with a uniform policy that spans from kindergarten all the way through college, because we have to get a handle on this. Students already had a problem with writing prior to going to college. Now the writing has fallen off the cliff and AI is writing everything for them. And I put up a piece at campusreform.org that people could check out. Companies spent $3.2 billion last year just to bring in remedial writers to teach their new employees how to write. These are skills that should have been developed in college, and they're not. So it shows you that it's already having an impact in the real world.
Well, Nicholas Giordano, you are saving education one solution at a time, sir. Thank you so much for joining the show.
Thank you for having me.
Don't go anywhere. America's Voice Live will continue after a brief commercial break. And don't forget to tune in to Real America's Voice on Monday at 8 a.m. Eastern for an important announcement from President Trump. We'll be right back on America's Voice Live. Stay with us. America's Voice Live. I'm Emily Finn, filling in today for Steve Gruber. Health is wealth is how the saying goes, and while Americans do their best to be preemptive about their health, Big Pharma and the medical institutions are quick to offer up medications as a Band-Aid instead of looking at the issue and finding other means of treatment. That's where the wellness company comes in, providing customers with a comprehensive team of board-certified doctors to help customers empower themselves and take back their health. Here to talk with me about this is Chief Medical Board Member at TWC, Dr. Drew Pinsky. Dr. Drew, great to see you again.
Thanks, Emily.
So there's been a lot of debate about the mRNA COVID shots. Let me ask the most simple question first. Why are these shots still on the market?
Well, I mean, the really stunning sort of question is why, if they're going to use an mRNA platform, why are they using it to create, sometimes in an uncontrolled manner, the very protein that we know is the pathogenic component of the COVID virus, the part that actually is damaging, the part that's actually causing the endotheliitis. They could easily switch to a whole viral platform or nucleocapsid protein. They could do all kinds of things they could do, but they're insisting on going this one direction with the vaccine that they've already developed. And I am suspect to the whole thing. The reality is, not only is there questions about the efficacy and the safety of these vaccines, the reality is that the variants that the boosters are covering have been gone for 6 months. So what exactly are we doing? Your question, though, was why are mRNA vaccines at all allowed? The reality is, Emily, is that one of the egregious sort of overreaches that was so clear during COVID is the centralized authority of employers and regulatory agencies and federal government telling physicians how to practice medicine. Look, if some doctor has an 85-year-old that he or she thinks could be benefited from an mRNA platform, he or she should have access to those therapeutics if they're appropriate. We use dangerous chemicals all the time in medicine when the risk is worth it. But the fact is, the outstanding aspect of this is the fact that there's been caving to the priorities of pharmaceutical companies, and there have been mandates from on high, both of which are egregious transgressions that must stop. It's really why I got involved with the wellness company, because it was so shocking to me. I thought we have to get things into the hands of patients. They need to get back in control of their care, because the physicians, the only people actually charged with caring for the patient and protecting the patient, we have lost control of the system.
Well, we have had your doctors from the wellness company on for the last couple of years discussing all of this mounting evidence that the shots are dangerous. Like you said, we do take dangerous chemicals from time to time, but only when the risk isn't too great. What is it going to take for RFK Jr. and the folks at HHS to finally do something on these shots, or are we just going to be stuck in this loop and pattern?
Well, you saw he's moving in that direction. It's frustrating for a lot of people. I understand that. And I've spoken to some people over at HHS, and the recent clearing of the Vaccine Safety Committee was a step in the right direction, as Jay Bhattacharya has said repeatedly, in order to try to establish faith in the federal government and in the medical system and the science of medicine. He's got to do very, very large moves in order to do so. And I think he's heading in that direction. The part that you and I can't quite appreciate is HHS is a huge organization, a ridiculously large bureaucracy, and he's got to get this tiger by the tail, and we need to give him some grace, give him some room, give him some time. He is the man to do this, I assure you. And he's put their great people in place with Dr. Makary and Dr. Bhattacharya. Let's let these guys do their job before we complain just too vigorously about what is going on here.
Sure. Reestablishing trust, especially post-pandemic, is almost an impossible task. HHS, like you mentioned, catch the tiger by the tail here. They just green-lighted a new mRNA COVID vaccine. Why would they do this?
Well, you're asking me questions that I don't have direct knowledge about why they would do that. But it is, your questions are quite valid, which is, I've just explained. This is an mRNA platform. We have questions about that. This is creating, many times in an uncontrolled fashion, the pathogenic protein of COVID. And it's designed for a variant that's been gone for 6 months. So why would they do this? I would say that's probably a good piece of evidence why he cleared house. But let's not forget, by the way, some of the most talented, the most cautious vaccine scientists that were on the vaccine approval committee quit over the COVID vaccine many years ago. So let's not forget that there have been people that could be brought back into the fray here that are very high quality scientists and could help us answer these questions that seem unanswerable at this time.
Sure. Yeah. These questions are just to inspire discussion rather than have answers right now. But this one, I think you can answer. What should Americans do who took the shots, who are worried about the long-term health impacts?
Well, I have a couple of ways of thinking about this. If you actually have some sort of long vax injury, of which there are many thousands, perhaps millions of people suffering, I would look at Dr. McCullough's protocol. I think he's done a great job with that. Also, Dr. Jordan Vaughn, in using nattokinase and anticoagulants of various sorts. These things have been shown to be very, very useful, and I would urge you to do so. There also are other organizations out there struggling to come up with a good protocol. They've used a lot of different things. Believe it or not, they've even used things like statins and ACE. Various things have been tried to varying degrees of success. Some people report a success with ivermectin. The fact is, I rely on Dr. McCullough. He's a careful scientist, and he is doing good work. If, on the other hand, you're just worried about your general health after COVID or vaccine, I am very concerned about natural killer function. One of the things that Dr. Patrick Chun-Chong has alerted us to is that our natural killer cells, which are the last sweep-up cells to detect cancer and certain infections, have been knocked down by the COVID virus and the COVID vaccine. I personally am using resveratrol for myself and my patients to help enhance that function. So that's something we can all do, and also attend to our general health, a diet, exercise. If you have trouble, talk to your doctor about how to get in a proper program of alignment to get your health back, because overall health certainly has a massive impact on our ability to fight off what has happened to us through the COVID debacle.
Yeah, sometimes it's the most simple things, diet, exercise, that really have the biggest impact on our health. Dr. Drew, so appreciate you giving that advice and sharing insight with us today. And we're going to keep asking those questions until we have answers.
I'm sure, Emily, you will. I'm positive. And so I appreciate that. So please keep doing so. But it is an important reminder, resistance training, eating real food, very simple things. We don't do it. We've got to do it.
Dr. Drew, appreciate you. All right, make sure you're going to twc.health/voice today and use the promo code VOICE to save 10%. Again, that's twc.health/voice. After the break, we will have a story that reminds us of how wonderful America is. Plus, your answers to America's Voice question of the day. This is the question: do you think the Senate will pass the big, beautiful bill before July 4th? Why or why not? We'll discuss. Stay with us. Thank you for staying with me today on America's Voice Live. I've had a great time filling in for Steve Gruber. I am Emily Finn. What makes America wonderful? We do it every day in the hopes of putting a smile on your face and to remind you just how great America truly is. Today's story comes to us from Detroit, Michigan. My home, I know Steve Gruber's home as well, where a son was sworn in as an attorney by his father. David Braxton Jr. describes an admiration he had for his father, David Braxton, who started working at the prosecutor's office and later founded his own firm and became a judge back in 2015, determined to follow the path set by his father. Braxton Jr. set out to law school, where he slowly but surely completed the requirements, which included passing the bar exam, all while having 2 daughters at home. Braxton Sr. states that the ceremony almost left him in tears as the culmination of his son's ambition and hard work in law school paid off and led to the faithful moment where he saw his baby boy all grown up with fruitful prospects ahead of him. Braxton Jr. concluded his thoughts on the situation by stating that he hopes this moment is an inspiration to not only his daughters, but to everyone out there who hopes to realize a lifelong dream. Ambition and hard work are a perfect mix to realize one's goals, and even more so when one's parents and loved ones can share in the triumph of achieving a dream and stories like these are what makes America wonderful. Wow, beautiful and so timely and fitting with Father's Day coming up this weekend. Now on to the question of the day. Do you think the Senate will pass the big, beautiful bill before the July 4th deadline? Why or why not? Let's take a look at what some of you guys had to say. Catherine Blackhawk, you wrote into us and you said, I'm hopeful that it will pass. I'm not sure that several senators will be primaried. Ooh, yes, Catherine, I think you are spot on with this. There have been some top leaders in the Republican Party that have already said this. I think that this is going to be pretty tough for some of those senators if they hold strong in how they feel about the big, beautiful bill. Let's move on to Buddy Eskew. He wrote to us and said they will pass it if they know what is good for them. All right, moving on to Jimmy Webb. He wrote to us saying Johnson isn't a strong enough leader to get the job done in Washington. As long as the public is focused on the BBB, they will not notice nothing else is getting done by Republicans in the House and Senate, so they can get reelected. We love when you guys share your thoughts with us. Thank you so much for writing into the show. And don't forget,
America's Voice family.
Are you on Getter yet? No?
What are you waiting for?
It's free.
It's uncensored.
and it's where all the biggest voices in conservative media are speaking out.
Download the Getter app right now. It's totally free. It's where I put up exclusively all of my content 24 hours a day. You want to know what Steve Bannon's thinking? Go to Getter.
That's right. You can follow all of your favorites. Steve Bannon, Charlie Kirk, Jack Posobiec.
And so many more.
And the best part?
You can watch Real America's Voice right there on Getter.
Live.
So join the conversation.
Hop on the Getter chat room.
Engage with patriots who are just like you.
Good morning, Getter friends.
We're breaking news, we're delivering the truth,
and we're doing it on Getter
every single day. So don't wait. Download the Getter app now.
Sign up for free and be part of the movement.
It isn't just an app. It isn't just a social media platform. It's a community.
All right, let's do it. Let's do it. Hit the bell. Ding, 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 ding. There they are. Ameren. The heck is Ameren? AEE. Listed on the New York Stock Exchange. They close at 4 o'clock. So we open for business. By the way, the market's gotten all over the place the last couple of days. Kind of quiet. Looks like the Dow Jones just ended less than $1 lower. That's just incredible. All that trading, literally tens of billions of dollars going back and forth. They end up almost exactly unchanged. 99 lower in the NASDAQ VIX, moving around a little bit. Gold, 33.68, very, very strong. Bitcoin made a run at the new high. Remember, the all-time high in Bitcoin is right around 112,000, made a run overnight, then backed off a little bit. And as we speak, Bitcoin trading, still trading, never stops trading, by the way. Bitcoin, 108,792. So, you know, I used to do this for a living, folks. I used to trade, only trade, didn't do TV, didn't do politics, just trade. That Bitcoin looks like it wants to continue to go higher. It doesn't look like it wants to back off. So what's going on in the markets right now? We had some good inflation numbers this morning. Very, very good inflation numbers. There'll be another inflation number tomorrow morning. But remember yesterday we talked about that? I said it's going to be tame. Came in tamer than expected. So inflation is looking good because that oil price being a bit lower. Bitcoin wants to go higher. Gold is staying very, very strong. All right, folks. I spoke with Senator Ron Johnson about the LA riots and also about his memory. He's a Republican senator and what his thoughts are. The one big, beautiful bill. A couple of very important topics. Watch. A senator, Republican, he's absolutely behind Donald Trump's one big, beautiful bill. He's taking a closer look at Medicare and Medicaid to find and remove the waste, fraud, and abuse running rampant in the system. Happy to have the senator from Wisconsin join me, Senator Ron Johnson. Senator Johnson, really, really good to see you again, my friend. Before we get into the one big, beautiful bill and whether it's going to get passed or not, or what it's going to take to get it past the Senate goal line, so to speak, I just want to ask you to weigh in on what you're seeing, what you're witnessing with the LA riots, with President Trump bringing out the National Guard, the Marines, et cetera, and then Gavin Newsom saying, what the hell are you doing? We don't need any of this. We had peaceful protests for the last 4 or 5 days. What are your thoughts on this nonsense playing out?
Well, they sure look peaceful. No, as Yogi Berra once said, this is deja vu all over again. I remember in the summer of 2020, all the riots, all of a sudden they were in Kenosha, Wisconsin. And President Trump offered Governor Evers at that point in time federalized some National Guard troop. And Governor Evers turned him down for a couple of days. And so he allowed Kenosha to burn. A couple individuals lost their lives. And finally, Governor Evers accepted the National Guard troops. And lo and behold, the rioting ended. The violence stopped. The destruction was over. And again, Democrat governance is a disaster for a city, for a state, for a nation. We're experiencing that. President Trump now is just having to deal and clean up all these messes. But what is most outrageous about the thing in L.A., these are federal agents, law enforcement officers that risk their lives trying to protect the public. And we need to support them. And you don't have a governor in California or a mayor of Los Angeles who are willing to support those individuals who are willing to sacrifice themselves to, maintain public safety and protect us. It's unconscionable. And then, of course, you have Democrat elected officials that are inciting the protests that they know will probably lead to violence and rioting. That's what happened in the summer of 2020. We had 2,000 peaceful protests, and out of that, about 570 violent protests, 2,000 law enforcement officials injured, a couple dozen people killed, and news media never reported that. It was all about January 6th, one time where you had conservatives get unruly. And, obviously broke laws, and we didn't condone that. But the left incentivizes this. And that I want Kash Patel, I want Pam Bondi to do a thorough investigation. Who is funding this? Who is inciting this? This is a game plan. This isn't spontaneous. This is planned. Civil disobedience turning into protests, turning into riots, turning into destruction. This is the strategy of the left. They're just not waiting this time. They're implementing it immediately.
Yeah, so there are a couple of groups that they say are involved. I mean, we've been hearing the name George Soros thrown around. We've heard No Kings. We've heard this guy Singham, who is a billionaire tech guru, who's allegedly funding some of these riots. So what happens if we do close that loop and we find out where the sources of the income? I saw a video this morning, pretty sure it's real. Again, it's on the internet. It looks damn real to me, where a black truck pulls up and hands out very expensive gas masks. Like these things are like $100, $150 each, hundreds of them, handing them out to people, and they were just grabbing them and going so that they can combat the resistance of the police, the law and order. So if we do find out who funds it, is there anything Congress can do to, I don't know, throw these folks in jail?
Well, again, that would be up to the Justice Department, and I hope we have laws against this that can be, these individuals can be indicted, prosecuted, and put in jail. That's what has to happen. We need to deter this. This is not acceptable, but we need to get to the bottom of it. And again, I really want Cash Patel and Pam Bondi to do a thorough investigation, track this thing down.
Yeah, they should. Moving on to one of the other topics before we get to the big, beautiful bill. Bassett and a couple of American counterparts. I saw Howard Lutnick meeting with the Chinese trade people. Any word on Capitol Hill, whether this thing is going to move forward, this trade negotiation with China? Because the whole markets are just waiting, holding their breath, hoping something comes out of these meetings. They're in day 2. I think they finish up day 2 today, moving on to day 3 tomorrow. What are your thoughts? What are you hearing on the Hill?
I'm not hearing anything. I wish them luck. China is a real problem. President Trump, I think, was very astute at pointing this thing out in his first term. It's very difficult to deal with China, but they're trying to. I do hope that we can conclude these trade negotiations worldwide so that we can bring stability to supply chains to the global market. President Trump, I think, is absolutely right to try and obtain reciprocal and fair trade from all of our trading partners, which we haven't gotten in the past. So I completely understand his goal. A lot of people, even people that are getting hurt by it right now, are supportive of him trying to get free and fair trade. But there's a lot of disruption. So again, the sooner this can be concluded, the sooner we'll have certainty of the economy, and that'll be a good thing.
All right, Senator. Your thoughts now on this big, beautiful bill you're working on, Medicare, Medicaid, waste, fraud, and abuse. Is this bill going to make it through the Senate? Rand Paul, a couple others are playing a little hardball with you guys.
Well, I'm one of the ones playing a little hardball here because what I cannot accept is this just a one and done. As far as it goes, there are a lot of good things in this. We fund the border, defense. We pocket, $1.4, $1.5 trillion in real savings costs. Some of them are pushed out too far. I think this is actually a case where the Senate's going to improve this bill. We take an automatic tax increase off the table. We avoid default. So again, I'm generally supportive of most of the elements here. My concern is, even with all the good things this bill does, we still have a massive debt and deficit problem here. And again, you can't do it all in one bill. So what I'm calling on the White House to do is let's maintain a forcing mechanism to give us another bite of the apple here, because I just simply can't accept $2 trillion deficits as far as the eye can see is the new normal. President Biden was grotesquely irresponsible when he came into office after COVID. Again, no American family, if they had an illness, had to borrow $50,000 to pay medical bills. If that family member got well, would keep borrowing and spending at that level. But that's what Biden did. He averaged deficits of $1.9 trillion. And this is, prior to COVID, Obama averaged in his last term deficits of $550. Trump had to do deal with Democrats, so it was up to $810. But Biden averaged $1.9 trillion. That's pretty well become the new normal. CBO projects $21.1 trillion of deficit spending over the next 10 years. That'd be an average of 2.1. I can't accept that. So we've got to do more. Can't do it all in one bill. I want us to be supportive of this one, but I need the assurance that we've got a forcing mechanism that we'll take another bite of the apple in this Congress. So we can't wait for another election.
Allow me, so the lay people like me who don't understand what you're saying, my concern, I'll play layman right here. I'll play devil's advocate for a second here. Okay, Senator, we agree with you. We want government to shrink, not expand in this. Obviously, if we're going to have a $1 trillion+ deficit every year, we're going to add $100 trillion worth of debt by the time our kids grow up. If we don't do this, though, we're going to lose the tax breaks. We're going to lose the Trump tax breaks that are going to expire. Isn't that a worse evil than spending a little bit more than we want to right now?
Right, and I don't think that's going to happen. I don't want it to happen. The ball just got served into the Senate court here, so let us take our time. There's really no rush in terms of July 4th. I know that's some artificial deadline set here, but we had a really good meeting with Vice President Vance and Kevin Hassett. Went through the report I just finished up. We need to get our numbers straight. We need to be taking a look at what we're looking at. So had a really good discussion right now. And again, the good news is we all want President Trump to succeed. We're all very grateful for what he's doing, cleaning up the messes left by Biden and the Democrats. This isn't easy. It's very easy to be a Democrat, spend money, mortgage kids' future, never be held accountable by the media. What we're trying to do, we're in effect the parent. One parent said, "Oh, we're going to go to Disney World." We're trying to be the parents that say, "But we can't afford it." That's never an easy thing to do. So, give us time. I had a good talk with the speaker, about a half hour talk over the weekend. So we're engaged. We're talking. We all want to succeed.
So just folks understand, it's in the Senate right now. You mark it up. You make some changes. You send it back down. You hope they sign off on it and it gets to the president's desk. And you hope there's not so many changes that President Trump just says, no, let's try this again. We have to start the process over. About right?
Again, the good news is we all want to see President Trump succeed in this agenda. We want to see the speakers and the majority leaders succeed. We're in this together. And we as Republicans are trying to do the hard thing, which is dial back government to a reasonable pre-pandemic level, things that Democrats just completely blew up, exploded.
If you were to take a vote right now, as is, would it fail?
It would right now.
Okay.
But again, don't be disheartened by that.
I'm not. You got work to do.
Some time here.
You got work to do. Senator Ron Johnson, appreciate your time. We'll get you back as things progress down that path. Thank you so much for your time.
Have a great day.
You too, sir. Well, you heard it there. They're not going to throw the towel in. They're going to try and get this thing past the goal line. But as Ron Johnson just said, Republicans will get it there. They may not get there by July 4th. We'll go to break. We'll come right back. We have another U.S. Senator on the backside of this break. Stick around. Let's go right to him. New York City. No, we went on New York City. I want to do this. My next guest just literally walked out of a meeting with President Trump, and they were discussing the one big, beautiful bill. Let's welcome brand newly minted Ohio Senator Bernie Moreno. Senator, really good to have you on, my friend, and just thrilled to say newly minted Ohio Senator because we're thrilled to see you in that Senate seat. Just awesome. Sir, tell us about the meeting.
It was great. Obviously, look, what's important for your viewers to know is what happens if we fail. If we don't pass this bill in the next 3 weeks, here's what happens. We don't have the money to modernize our air traffic control system. First time in American history, we actually get serious about modernizing a system that's been around for 70 years. It's old, it's antiquated, it needs to be replaced. Secondly, a $4 trillion tax increase. That's $5,000 for every working American. We don't get the $2,500 child credit, which helps families breathe. You know, as you know, having kids right now is really expensive. That child tax credit is a key part of that. Allowing interest on automobiles to be deducted if that car is made in America, that's a big deal. Funding the border. Finally, without Democrats, we can do it. We can make certain that we have the ICE agents and detention beds to put in place what voters asked for, which is the largest deportation effort in American history. And of course, funding our military. These are the things that's in this bill. It's extremely important that you Republicans get together and unite and get this bill across the finish line so that before July 4th, President Trump puts that into law.
Senator, I just had Senator Ron Johnson. By the way, we taped that interview yesterday. I had Senator Ron Johnson on the show literally just right before you. And I asked him the same question. I said, he was pushing back. He said, look, we all want it to pass. I mean, the Republicans want to get this bill, this House bill, marked up back to the House, finish it up, and get it to the president's desk. But he said, we're not in a rush. We're not looking at July 4th as any sort of deadline. And my thoughts are, you all want it. Why don't we just get it done? I mean, is this, and again, you're new to the Senate seat, but you're not new to politics. Is this the typical wrangling for, I want to get some of the stuff I want, I'm going to hold out a little bit, but in the end, we're going to get this through. We all know what this bill's going to go through, don't we?
Well, look, I just outlined what's at risk. So, you know, I like Ron Johnson. He's a great guy. My daughter actually worked on his campaign back a long time ago. But he's wrong. We do need to get this bill across the finish line by 4th of July because, again, historic investment in our air traffic control system. Prevent a tax increase that will cost American workers $5,000. Right now, you see what's going on in L.A. We need more detention beds. We need more ICE agents. We need more deportation flights. We can't do that if we don't give the president the money. The people of America spoke loudly on November 5th. They want President Trump's agenda. And by the way, no income tax on tips, no income tax on overtime. These are very popular items. And look, again, all due respect to my colleague, Ron Johnson, look, the time for deliberation's over. We've been at this for months. In the private sector, this would have been done a long time ago. I'm giving the patience of politics. The patience is over. We need to get this bill on the floor. Let's vote on it, and let's get it to the House so that the President of the United States can sign it into law in a beautiful ceremony right here in the White House for a big, beautiful bill.
Yes, and what the folks need to understand, and believe me, I'm for getting this done. I'm a libertarian. I'd like to see government this big, not this big, and we keep growing. However, I know the risks. You play games like I want this, we want that, and you run the risk of it just not happening. You have three seat majority. You can't lose more than, I guess you can lose a third, but you can't lose the fourth one. Where are you right now? What's the whip now?
Well, look, as you know, I say it in my private sector business, time kills all deals. We've been at this for months. Eric, this isn't something that was sprung on us yesterday. We've been at this for months. I wish it was Monday through Friday. It's really not, unfortunately. That's another conversation. But we've been at it. We've deliberated. We've read it. We understand what's on the bill. Extraordinarily popular items, things that help working Americans, and most importantly, fulfill the promises that each and every one of us made when we were on the campaign trail last year. Every Republican promised to secure the border, promised deportations, promised to avoid the tax cut, promised no tax on tips, and promised no tax on overtime. Let's deliver for the American people.
Let's get it done. Senator, really good to have you. I know you've got a bunch of appointments. Love to get you back as this thing progresses when you have a little bit more time. Great job, brother. Thank you so much for what you're doing.
Thank you. Thanks, man. Appreciate it. Yep.
All right, everyone. Senator Bernie Moreno from the great state of Ohio. Think about it. Every dollar you spend is either supporting your values or working against them. In today's economy, where you spend your money matters. That's how we take back our country. Patriot Mobile, leading the way as America's only Christian conservative wireless provider. Switch today without sacrificing quality or service. You'll get exceptional nationwide coverage because unlike most budget wireless providers, Patriot Mobile has access to all 3 major U.S. networks. You can even add 2 numbers on 2 networks on one phone, something the big guys just can't do. Stay connected. With flexible, unlimited data plans to fit your lifestyle, these plans offer high-speed data, mobile hotspots, international roaming, device protection, and even internet backup. Here's the best part. When you switch to Patriot Mobile, you're supporting faith, family, and freedom. If you believe in our First and Second Amendment, by the way, the sanctity of your life, and supporting our veterans, this is where you belong. Switching is simple. Keep your number, keep your phone, or upgrade. Patriot Mobile's 100% U.S.-based team will get you activated in minutes. Right now, go to patriotmobile.com/RAV or call 972-ASH to Patriot to get a free month of service with promo code RAV. Make the switch. Defend freedom with every call and text. That's patriotmobile.com/RAV or call 972-PATRIOT. Talk to me, Mad Dog. What do we got?
We can do some rapid.
You would do some rapids? We can do some rapids. We can do some rapids. All right, folks. How about a good little Soros soldier, California Governor Gavin Newsom? Well, he spoke last night, days after the chaos started. Gavin finally decided it was time to talk to the people of California, to assure them that everything was going to be okay, telling the people to calm the heck down, to restore order, except he didn't. Well, first he begged my friend Sean Hannity. Watch.
All right, this is a Fox News alert. Governor Newsom just texted me and was asking me whether or not we will be taking some of his press conference at the bottom of the hour. So that'll be about 3 minutes from right now as he's slated to address the nation. I will fact check it in real time.
What a sad, sad man. But it gets sadder and better for us, I guess. Don't worry, because then extremely fitting, given that Newsom's whole governorship has been a disaster. He started it all off with no sound. No, we didn't lower the volume on that. There just wasn't any, which sent CBS into panic mode. Cover.
Okay, we are working on the audio. Not sure if that's on the governor's end, but we're working to get that production up and running.
Yeah, can't even get his microphone turned down. How's he going to save the people of California? Well, then when Gavin finally did manage to get things up and running, he chose to do the least governor thing as possible. Did he calm the tensions? Nope. Instead, the true Democrat form, he coughed up some nasty Trump derangement syndrome.
This isn't just about protests here in Los Angeles. When Donald Trump sought blanket authority to commandeer the National Guard, he made that order apply to every state in this nation. This is about all of us. This is about you. California may be first, but it clearly will not end here. Other states are next. The rule of law has increasingly been given way to the rule of Don.
See, I'm not going to fix this place. It's Trump's fault. And then Trump says, I'm going to bring in the National Guard and the Marines. He said, Trump's causing more of the problem. Well, guess what? The chaos and mayhem continued. But don't worry, Mrs. Newsom still found some time, get this, to take her $2,000 handbag out for a little shopping excursion. Never let a good crisis go to waste. Am I right? By the way, if you're online, Antonio Brown, the football player, is just living rent-free inside the Newsom's heads. I won't go to what he said about the governor's wife, but wow. This is the pinnacle of liberal thinking right here and right now. And of course, it happened right here. Watch this on CNN.
Remember that California was part of Mexico. All of the Southwest is Mexico. So the roots are really deep in that region.
Well, in case anyone tries to tell you this isn't an invasion, tell me, watch this clip if this is an invasion. Is that the Mad Dog? Mad Dog.
Yes, sir.
Is that the lady from They Them Energy? Is that the same one?
Maybe. I'm not too sure.
They looked alike. They kind of all start to look alike. All these liberal freak progressives start to look alike, don't they? This one made my jaw drop. We've heard it all. We've heard it all from these leftist propaganda machines. They've compared Trump to Hitler. They've compared Trump to, I don't know, fascists. But this Princeton professor hurls a whole new kind of slur and insult at us, at MAGA, on MSDNC. Wait for it.
What will happen? Will he activate the ugliness that got him in office in the first place? Will folk now declare why they love him? Because we know that he's always good on the immigration question. And then the second thing, this reminds me historically of it's not a clear analogy, but when the nation, when these political factions divided the nation in between slaveholders and slave catchers. Donald Trump, as a political charlatan of sorts, gives Americans license to be who they really are. They don't have to pretend.
I'm going to leave it right there. There's literally no comment you can say about that nut job liberal professor. We're going to go to break. We'll be back with John Solomon, backside of the break. All right, let's bring in the editor-in-chief and CEO of Just the News. He's bringing us some breaking news about the COVID-19 virus that plagued the world. He discovered something, folks. Your jaw is going to drop. Mr. John Solomon. John, you've been working on this for a while. You sent me a piece that you put together. This is unbelievable. Go ahead, I'll let you set it up.
Yeah, 3 months into the pandemic, we're still trying to figure out whether to stay 6 feet apart and wear a mask. And the DIA, one of our premier defense intelligence agency, DIA, they had already determined that COVID-19 was not from nature. It was lab manufactured and that it leaked specifically from a bin of viruses that were being held at the Wuhan Institute of Virology. Exactly what Donald Trump was saying at the time, except that the DIA didn't tell the White House. It also didn't tell its fellow agencies. Whistleblowers inside the agency have told Congress and the FBI that they were told, don't share this with the FBI. They're on the wrong side of this issue. In other words, The FBI thought it was a lab leak, and somebody in the Intelligence Committee wanted it to be something other than the facts and the evidence and the intelligence. But that wasn't the only piece of evidence that DIA had gathered in a really quick period of time. Anthony Fauci would be out there arguing with his cronies at NIH that this came from a wet market episode in November 2019, but the DIA knew that the first recorded death in China from COVID was in September, 2 months before the wet market. They also knew that there had been a lab cleanup at the Wuhan Institute of Technology. They had signal intelligence showing the cleanup, suggesting that the lab had a leak that allowed the deadly virus to get out. They also knew that several members of the U.S. military competing in the World Military Games in Wuhan in October had come down with the virus. All of the evidence showing that it had been a lab leak and that it was before the November wet market story that Anthony Fauci and his buddies whipped up. And it was all kept from the American public, kept from Congress, kept from other intelligence agency. It's now at the center of a criminal investigation. The FBI is investigating whether some members of the intelligence community obstructed their approach.
This is important right here, right? Because if I remember, and we were covering this like extensively. First of all, DIA, Defense Intelligence Agency, not telling the FBI or whatever, CIA is disturbing enough. But if I remember, there were a couple of doctors that were working who said, you know what, the lab leak theory is accurate. And all of a sudden they reversed course at some point. And then Anderson, if I remember, they got paid. They got grants after that. They were anti-Fauci. All of a sudden, they jump on board in Fauci's, wet market theory, and then all of a sudden they get grants from various U.S. bodies giving them money, right?
That's right. That's exactly what happened. Tens of millions of dollars when you look at the full group of the scientists. This is a real concern, right? And it's why it's now a criminal matter inside the FBI. The investigation is being run by an agent in Cleveland on the cover-up leading to about where the virus emanated from. Then there's a second cover-up about the hiding or destruction of emails, putting things on private email a la Hillary Clinton so they couldn't be discovered by Congress or the American public. And then there's a third element of the criminal investigation about whether when early side effects of the vaccine, the COVID-19 vaccine, would come out, whether those were covered up and whether there's some political manipulation of the data. 3 different plots being investigated by the FBI. A strong chance that there will be accountability, maybe even arrests or civil action taken against some of the players here. John, the big loser is the American public.
Is there anyone is the FBI, is anyone going to investigate why the hell Anthony Fauci was using funds to support gain-of-function research in a Chinese lab? American money, using American money to increase the virility and mortality of viruses held by the Chinese.
Yeah, they should be. Everyone who is involved in that should be. Remember, Barack Obama banned it. That ban was never lifted, but they just continue doing it. Listen, right now, just in the last 2 weeks as we're sitting here, there's another reminder of the danger of what's going on. We've had 3 scientists arrested in the last 10 days carrying deadly or toxic pathogens into the United States, things that could wipe out crops. Who's funding them right now? The United States government. The United States government is funding those experiments. We're taking communist Chinese scientists, moving them to our soil on visas at the NIH and other science institutions. We're paying for that research so that China's military can find more lethal ways to either wipe out our crops or wipe out our people. I hate to see America fund its own demise, but a lot of people look at this scenario saying, our government's actually funding China's effort to unseat us.
And one of the brilliant things the Trump administration is doing is shutting down these J-1 visas, right? These J-1 visas are where it's a kind of exchange where, in fact, the pathogens that these people were caught bringing in, you know where they were coming from? From Wuhan, the University of Wuhan. And so there's an exchange student thing going on, and these Chinese people from Wuhan, no less, are bringing in pathogens. They're caught, and they're doing it all under the guise, we're a J-1 visa student exchange thing with the University of Michigan. Trump is brilliant to shut that down.
He does. And listen, the intelligence community has known since 2005. This is work that I did about a year ago and that the House Intelligence Committee later confirmed in a report last December. Wuhan has been the center of the Chinese illicit bioweapons program. They are not studying these things for the good of humanity to stop a future pandemic. They're studying it to give China certain biowarfare capabilities in violation of current treaties. That is the assessment of our intelligence community going all the way back to the early 2000s. And yet, despite knowing that, we have this extraordinary flow of money out to China and their scientists brought onto our soil doing this work. Somebody's got to stop the insanity.
Well, you know what does, John? You know what stops the insanity is when you get a perp walk. When you get an Anthony Fauci who made literally millions upon millions of dollars and will get paid and you know all these deals he's got, and he's on the cover of fashion magazines, he becomes this pedestal hero, and he was doing, Rand Paul pointed him out and said, you're supporting gain of function. He said, Senator, I am not. I will never forget that interchange with his hand raised after he was sworn in on the Bible. We need a perp walk of Anthony Fauci, and if you may end up, will we see that?
Probably not, given the pardon he got from President Biden. That was pretty sweeping, right? They'd have to invalidate the pardon, which is a hard thing to do. But there are other people around him. There also could be civil penalties. A pardon does not protect you from a civil racketeering lawsuit. I think the Justice Department's going to look at several measures of accountability, maybe not everything we're thinking. O.J. Simpson got off in the murder case, but then he lost in the RICO case, right? There is a possibility, or in the civil case, there is a possibility that the Justice Department takes some civil action here as well. These are really serious matters and serious times, and we have to stop the trend line we're on. We've got about 1,000 scientists just inside the National Institutes of Health that come from countries of concern. We brought them here. We're giving them money. They're doing research, and we're not really monitoring them closely. That is a national security hazard.
John Solomon and Justin News, you guys are doing some amazing work. You're getting access. You're breaking these stories. It's fantastic for the American people. And by the way, you know, you have access within the administration. Really, really good to be a partner on the same network as you, John. Keep doing the great work.
I love you. You've been such a great addition to this network. I watch every day. You're in my as I'm getting ready for my show. I'm watching you, and I just love it every day. It's a fantastic show.
Appreciate that. Very, very nice show. I'll talk to you again very soon. John Solomon, everyone.
Thanks, Eric. See you later, buddy.
All right, folks. Just want to remind you about podcasts I do on YouTube page. Updated daily. Just go there. Those are subscribe places right down there at the bottom of the screen. It's always going to be free. Subscribe now. I want to get back because we have yet another guest on the backside of the break. Oscar Ramirez, who's in the Mexico-Guatemala border. He's got some interesting stuff for us. Big show today. Be right back. we're going to get to Oscar in just one second. A new administration in Washington, D.C. has brought a lot of positive changes when it comes to fixing that broken healthcare system of ours. The reality is, however, that there's only so much the government can do, and that if we really want to make America healthy again, that starts at home with each and every one of us, and that's where the Wellness Company comes in. You see and hear from TWC doctors all the time on this network, and you know that their products are the gold standard for keeping you and your family safe and healthy. The Wellness Company gives you the opportunity to make sure you're prepared for whatever happens with their series of prescription medical kits. Again, prescription medical kits. These kits contain an assortment of life-saving medications and guidebooks to assist in the proper use of the medications. Additionally, the Wellness Company offers a variety of products from parasite cleanses to methylene blue to weight loss and so much more. These medications, these kits can help you stay healthy and live a longer and more satisfying life. Make America healthy again. MAHA starts at home. Do your part and protect the health of you and your family. Go to www.twc.health/voice today and order. That's twc.health/voice. Use that promo code VOICE to save 10%. All right, folks, let's go to bring in our RAV border correspondent who's in Tapachula, Mexico, with some 500 migrants, get this, who are still waiting to see if they can get documents to come into the United States. Always happy to have Oscar El Azur, Oscar Ramirez to join us. Oscar, tell us about these folks and what are they, you're on the Mexico-Guatemala border and they're waiting for what?
Eric, thank you for the invitation. Yes, today we were in this location. It is called Migration South. There was around 500 migrants that only today, they were just there waiting for the paperwork that is called multiple migration form for them to walk freely into the northern borders or into the central parts of Mexico. We asked a lot of these migrants that they were waiting for this permit, what are they trying to do? If they're trying to go to the borders of the United States or what they're trying to do. And they say a lot of them, they want to wait here to see the elections, the midterms, they already know that, or the 2028 election to see if Donald Trump is not going to be no longer president and the borders will be open. Just a statistic that is going to surprise you, Eric, just on this city alone, Tapachula, local journalists have told us that there are around 10,000 migrants that they're still scattered, waiting here for an opportunity. A lot of them, they have assimilated themselves to get work visas, to work here, to stay here. But a lot of them, they have assimilated another opportunity to say, you know what, there's going to be a possibility to go again to the United States of America. So this 10,000 right here on the south border of Mexico, still the border between Mexico and Guatemala remains open. There's no vigilance whatsoever. You have a scattered National Guard here and there, but nobody is checking, nobody is doing the actual vetting to people that are coming in from Guatemala on an open border. We were just down here at another open border gap that is right here between Guatemala and Mexico. We had two scouts, possibly cartel scouts on top of the bridge where you cross legally. And behind me, you see the crossing legally to Guatemala to Mexico. But underneath, the river, it is wide open and people coming back and forth still there.
So Oscar, so this green, you're in southern Mexico, right? So they're not on the border, near the border with the U.S., but they're, is this, basically South American folks, Guatemala, Honduras, everywhere, are aggregating in the southern part of Mexico, and if they see some sort of political opening, they're going to make the trek to our border and come through. Is that their plan?
Yes, absolutely. And there was a vast majority of people from Cuba. From Cuba, there was a lot of people from Cuba, Venezuela, Haiti. Yes, and we saw people from Cameroon also. Today we saw people from Africa, from the part of Cameroon.
Oscar, why would a Cuban go through South America to come to the border when they can just get on a boat and drop themselves off in Miami?
I do not know, Eric. We asked them, why they're taking this, treacherous journey. For them, a lot of them, they go to Nicaragua first because Nicaragua is a communist regime and they are in cahoots with Diaz-Canel, that is also, a dictator in Cuba. And that they give them the accessibility to come walking, country by country, Central America, then entering, as I just explained to you, open border between Guatemala and Mexico, and then they land here. And they're waiting to see if there's going to be a possibility or they can get a visa, a work visa. And then, if the opportunity comes, the vast majority of migrants, they're waiting for this opportunity for the border to be open. This is what we talked about, Eric, that before there's hundreds of thousands of people right here stranded waiting for that opportunity to come again.
So What about Venezuelans? I mean, the big concern for me now is the Tren de la Agua is growing in popularity. It must be growing within Venezuela. Are you seeing some of that too, or are they? I'm just trying to figure out what this is. It's almost like like a holding town or city for groups from different countries, and then they're going to all decide to come. But remember those massive migrant caravans? This is what they're preparing for, and we haven't seen one under Trump.
No, it actually got canceled, all of them. I walked 12 caravans under the Biden administration, and now under Trump, you don't see none of them. But regarding the Tren de Agua, the thing that I'm most concerned of all the years that I had covered this, Eric, and also in the Darien Gap, it is the former military males that they were in the military from Cameroon, from Nigeria, from Burkina Faso, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Afghanistan, former staff sergeants from, Venezuela, Colombia. All of these people are inside of the United States of America. So now that you have these riots, this is one of the things that I was, been saying, that it's going to be extremely difficult for the Trump administration to expel these, these individuals because they're extremely prepared. And now that these riots are happening, it's a deep concerning thing of what can happen in the internal security and national security of the United States.
So, everyone's saying that they're going to, they need diplomatic immunity. But the way you get that, if you're from Honduras or you're from Venezuela or even Cuba, it's the next state over. You're not allowed to cross 3 borders and present yourself in the United States and say, I'm here, I need political asylum, right?
Yes, absolutely. According to the Global Compact on Migration, that is the biggest problem, not only the migration in Europe, but also in the continent of America. That's why they designated third world secure countries. So if you're from Venezuela and you cross by Colombia, that is a third secure country. That is a place that you need to stay. That is a place that you can ask asylum. Even if they cross to Panama, Panama is also a third world secure country. Even if they cross to Costa Rica and so on. But, the open border was the offering to all of these migrants, and they knew that they can enter through the river in the Rio Grande, and they can cross illegally through an open border gap in Arizona or in Texas. So the prize for these people was to enter the United States. Now the problem is to get millions out, Eric, and it is going to be extremely difficult.
So 2 questions. The question is, are they camping out there for, I don't know, you said till midterms, year and a half now or 2, or 2020? Are they kind of telling the world that they're now Mexican so that they can make the cross into the U.S.? Question 1. And 2, who's supporting them? How are they financing their lives there?
Well, the first question, the Mexican president just said to Christian that she's actually returned back 500,000 migrants. That is a complete lie, because that's why we came down here. The border's still open, and these migrants are assimilating, and they're going to the immigration offices to get work permits so they can stay here, meanwhile, the time that they see if there's going to be an opportunity for a reopening into the United States. And another thing that I mentioned before, Eric, it is that the borders between Mexico and the United States, the former director of immigrants in Tijuana said that more than 1 million petitions of CBP-1 were canceled in the first minute that Donald Trump came into office. So that is a vast majority of people that they're stranded in Mexico. And to the financial situation, we just went to Guatemala and saw the international organizations, OIM, UNHCR, UNICEF is still operating and still working. And also right here, they shut the door to us in Tapachula, the UNHCR still operating from 8 to 5. Now, those international organizations are under the American taxpayer. I don't know if USAID has been completely defunded or completely canceled, but they're still operating, and those are the international organizations.
So this is what folks need to understand. This is what folks need to understand. USAID and a series of others, which are U.S. taxpayers supported, are funding their NGOs. They're supporting NGOs, Christian ministries, et cetera. They're funding them, and then those NGOs are in turn using taxpayer dollars to support these migrants that are just, they got one thing in mind, it's just crossing the border, coming into the United States, right?
Absolutely. That's the number one objective. And meanwhile, under the Biden administration, they were under the Globalist Compact of Immigration that basically the United Nations was in charge of the border of the United States. And the obligation of the United States of America at that particular time is to give them refugee, to give them housing, to give them clothing, to give them money, to give them all of this stuff. This is the number one problem. And we have still those international organizations here. So what Trump administration needs to do to the Mexican government is to ask them why you're still in the Globalist Compact of Immigration, because the border's still open and they're still coming.
Yeah. Oscar, El Blue, El Zul, Appreciate your time. Please stay safe.
Thank you so much, sir.
Very, very dangerous job you got there, brother. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Always an honor.
All right, folks. We will be back in 2.5 minutes. All right, let's bring in White House correspondent Brian Glenn, who's at the Kennedy Center, where President Trump and Melania Trump, along with the Vice President and Usha Vance, will see Les Miserables. You know, there were some rumors, Brian, that a couple of the actresses may boycott tonight. What are you hearing?
Well, you know, I heard the same thing, and that is to be expected. Now, tonight, President Trump and First Lady will make their appearance here at the Kennedy Center, and this is kind of a preview night. The official opening night for this is actually tomorrow night, but this is kind of a special preview. And to what you alluded to, there was rumors of about 10, I guess, actors and actresses that were saying they were going to boycott this show. And of course, Rick Grinnell put out a statement and says, look, if any performer can't get past any kind of political differences and be able to perform in front of an audience that might not necessarily agree with you and you might not agree with them, then you're not a true professional. And so we'll see what happens tonight. I would imagine, as we've seen things like this before, at productions, you might have a few whistles and maybe a few boos in the audience as soon as the First Lady and President Trump make their appearance here, but who knows? But it's going to be a gorgeous night. This is my first time at the Kennedy Center, and I got to tell you, Eric, place is pretty snazzy. I like it.
Well, I'll tell you, you're looking good, my friend. Looking pretty tight, as they say, pretty tight there. The suit looks great, nice white shirt.
Tight.
It's, my guess, it's the arts, it's DC, it's the arts. It's certainly not UFC. I mean, I don't expect him to come in, walk in with the roaring crowd and high fives everywhere. You never know.
Walking in with a little Kid Rock. Yeah, we're not going to walk in with that. You know, Kid Rock may not be appropriate for here. There's a lot of other French performers that we can maybe lay down a soundtrack. So it's a little different walk in here than a UFC fight. You're right.
Yeah, I wanted to talk to you yesterday. We started the show. We got bumped yesterday because of a wonderful presentation by Pete Hegseth and the president at Fort Bragg. That was wonderful. And you had such an honor to be part of that. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I was honored to be a part of the motorcade. We left from the White House, went to Joint Base Andrews, jumped on Air Force One, flew to Fort Bragg, and then transitioned into a Chinook helicopter, which was the experience of a lifetime to be on that, just to feel the power and all the pure energy from that aircraft. We went over to a demonstration site where they basically do these staged, this was kind of a mission, kind of a search and rescue operation they were doing. They absolutely put on a show. Everything from, simulated missiles going across the sky to 600 paratroopers jumping out of planes, landing on the ground. We had Hummer. We had troops on the ground in staging. We did kind of a search and rescue. It was something spectacular. Now, the president, I viewed that from the media area, but President Trump and some of his staff were in what would look like some type of bunker and had a different position in all of this. But this was just to show the world, the nation, that our military, coming up on 250 years strong, is the best in the world, and they definitely put on a show yesterday. Eric.
Pete Hegseth, a former colleague of mine, friend of mine, love him, and it was really good to see him, amongst his people, his folks, and they loved him. They adored him. So this narrative that the left is putting out there, that he somehow has problems internally, it's all BS. You saw that yesterday. In fact, I snapped this picture. Yes. I don't know if the camera is going to be able to see this. Can you zoom in on that, Mad Dog, at all? Anyway, that's Pete on stage, and I sent it to him, and he's the right man for that job. And then you had Trump coming out, and wow, I haven't seen Trump almost emotional when he first started. He paused, he was taking it in for a few minutes, Brian. That was a moment.
He was. Let's go back to Pete Hegseth just for a second. When he took the stage, that was one of the things that really stood out to me, was the applause and the enthusiasm from the crowd for Pete. And that really stuck out. And it actually made a mental note on that to make sure I mentioned that on air, that there's any question whether or not the military has respect for Hegseth and what he's doing. They do, and they showed it yesterday. Then,
hold on. Let me just stop you there for a second. Not only did you make a mental note of that, Trump makes a mental note of the applause that people get when he talks about that. I am sure that just solidified Pete. He was already solid with Trump, but when you saw that emotional, warmth that the troops gave Pete, that's just I'm sure that just went right to Trump's heart and soul.
And Pete's a communicator. He's a professional, even have the Fox News background. He knows how to command attention, knows how to deliver a message. And it obviously came across on stage yesterday. And of course, when we got to the venue, it was very much looked like a Trump rally. It was just filled with military personnel. It was big. It was massive. The staging looked just like a Trump rally. The imagery, the music before Pete came out, it was all the Trump of a Trump rally. Seeing Marine One circle around a couple times, getting the applause from everyone on the ground, watching Marine One land, and having President Trump walk out on stage. It was something special. And I tell you, if that gives you any indication of what this Saturday will look like, get the popcorn, pull up the Diet Coke. It's going to be a fun time. And of course, we'll have all the action right here on Real America's Voice, starting really late afternoon, going up to the fireworks show that ends the night at 9:30.
Well, you know, Brian, you're living the dream of any journalist in the world right now. You are 1 degree removed from the most powerful man and the most powerful administration in the world. It's great, and you're doing a wonderful job. You're just doing a great job. We're just proud to be part of. I appreciate. We have with you, Brian Glenn. Thank you so much. Have a great night tonight, by the way.
Thank you. You too, Eric. Thank you.
Okay, folks, that's it. That's all we have time for. Bannon, I don't know. He's looking for Bannon every day. I got people on Getter and Rav saying, where's the Bolling Bannon banter? I don't know. Folks, call him, text him, tell him we got to get him back here, everyone. Have a great night. We'll see you tomorrow. Steve Bannon War Room coming up in about 6 seconds or so. Bolling out.
A week ago, everything was peaceful in the city of Los Angeles and in all of the representatives behind me in their cities as well. Things began to be difficult on Friday when raids took place, and it's important that I begin there because that is the cause of the problems that have happened in the city of Los Angeles and other cities. This was this was provoked by the White House. The reason why, we don't know.